Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to come about politics. And in a week where Donald Trump has described Europe as weak, let us get real about what's really happening here. The Orange One, Space Karen, JD Dunce, and others are not taking issue with the EU because it makes Europe weak, but because it makes it strong. Under Trump, the United States government sees itself in partnership with Russia and opposition to Europe. Or if not outright opposition, it wants to use Europe as a feed bag. It sees no alliance, only a potential cash cow. As for figures in the EU who are echoing the attacks on Europe, they are weak. How could it possibly be interpreted otherwise? Reform UK, the AfD and similar parties are favoured by Trump because they are weak. In the UK, we see those in Reform UK fawning uncritically over everything Trump does and says. Nigel Farage is a lickspittle. Trump approves of him because he is the worm tongue who will hand his country to the Orange One on an engraved golden platter. The same applies to similar figures in other European countries. Trump is also weak. As US President with a largely tame Supreme Court and Congress, he is in a strong position, but he's a weak man. I see no debate in this statement. He fawns over Putin. When the two met in Alaska, Putin humiliated Trump, and after a brief sulk, Trump bent over and asked for another kick in the pants. Most European leaders, on the other hand, have stood up to Putin. That is not to say there is no weakness in Europe. There absolutely is. The fact that we didn't deal robustly with Putin's aggression years ago, when he was not yet secure in Russia, and the task would have been much easier, that was a weakness. The fact that we behaved as if the USA would always have our backs was a huge mistake. Not just Trump, there were warning signs before. Although no other president has behaved as stupidly or dishonestly as Trump, even President Obama was indicating that the geopolitical concerns of the USA and Europe were on a divergent course. European and American defence was focused on common cause with the threat from Russia. As soon as America saw China as the greater threat, there was always going to come the need to rethink defence. So our failure to prepare for differing priorities was a weakness. But the EU is not. The EU makes Europe stronger. The three largest economic powers in the world are the United States, China and the EU. Nobody else is in the same league. But break the EU up and no other European country would be in that league either. They would all be weak and easy to pick off one by one for a ravenous America, even the largest of them, Germany. With Russia greedily, of course, collecting the crumbs. But look at what the EU allows these European countries to do collectively. And you see why Trump is not attacking the EU because he thinks it's weak, but because it's frustratingly strong. This year, the European Union did something that was once utterly unthinkable. It hit Apple with a €500 million fine. Meta, €200 million. Not as a warning, as a consequence. A few months later, Elon Musk's Twitter platform, €120 million for breaking its new rulebook. In response, some of Musk's powerful American political allies declared it an attack on free speech and the American people. See, for years, American tech giants and political strongmen saw Europe as little more than a market to be dominated, a continent of consumers, not a sovereign power. They figured they'd write the rules of the digital world forever. They were wrong. To understand the fortress that the EU has built, you have to understand the world that made it necessary. For the better part of 2 decades, the internet was a Wild West. Silicon Valley was the one writing the laws. A handful of American companies built empires on a simple but brilliant model: give away free services and in return collect staggering amounts of user data. Our clicks, our likes, our locations, our conversations, all becomes a commodity. If you ever wonder why there are so many really useful free online services, because it's not really free. You pay with your data and your data is valuable. And this wasn't just a business model, it was a geopolitical shift. These companies grew more powerful than many nations. Their platforms shaping public discourse, elections, even revolutions. Politically, especially with Trump, the view from Washington is that Europe is a power in decline, right? That's what he said last week. Or they claim that's their view. But in reality, their real view is that it is a challenge to them and must be made weak. The administration's national security strategy even suggested Europe was facing civilizational erasure. and that the US should support movements aiming to pull countries away from the European Union. President Trump himself rarely missed a chance to attack EU rules or use economic threats like tariffs to get his way. The message from Washington is clear. American tech is an extension of American power. Some US politicians openly work to undermine EU rules, portraying them as attacks on American companies. Big tech, in turn, happy to pay the occasional fine, pour money into lobbying, count on Washington to shield them from real accountability. Europe was, for all intents and purposes, a digital colony, rich in data and consumers, poor in power. The continent that had shaped much of world history was now having its digital future shaped for it by corporations and politicians an ocean away, a former colony, ironically. But under the surface, something was changing. Europe decided it had enough of being a rule taker. The first brick in this fortress was laid back in 2018. General Data Protection Regulation, we know it as GDPR. To most of us, it's just a bunch of annoying pop-ups asking for cookie consent. But in reality, it's a revolution. For the first time, a major global power declared that personal data wasn't a commodity to be exploited, but a right to be protected. GDPR gives citizens the right to know what data is being collected on them, the right to access it, the right to have it deleted. It was Europe's Declaration of Digital Human Rights, and it came with serious teeth, fines of up to 4% of a company's global annual turnover. But the GDPR was just the start. The fortress needed walls and towers. Those came in the form of two landmark laws, the Digital Services Act, DSA, and the Digital Markets Act, DMA. Now, here's a simple way to think about it. The DSA is the new sheriff in this digital Wild West. It forces platforms like Twitter, Facebook, TikTok to be more transparent and act decisively against illegal and harmful content. The goal is to make the online world safer. The DMA, on the other hand, is aimed at the gatekeepers, the handful of giants like Apple, Google, Amazon, that control the digital economy's core infrastructure. Its mission is to challenge their dominance and create a fairer market. It prohibits them from favouring their own products, forces them to open up their ecosystems to competitors. Together, GDPR, the DSA and the DMA form the blueprint for Europe's fortress. It's a system designed not just to punish bad behaviour, but fundamentally reshape the power balance between citizens, states and Silicon Valley. Now, a fortress is only as strong as its ability to withstand an attack, of course, and over the past couple of years, the EU has shown that its fortress is battle ready. The enforcement actions have come hard and fast, proving these laws aren't just paper tigers. The fines have been huge. In September, the European Commission hit Google with a nearly €3 billion penalty for abusing its dominance in the ad tech business. The EU had previously ordered Apple to pay €13 billion in back taxes to Ireland over a sweetheart deal, a decision that, after being annulled by a lower court in 2020, was ultimately upheld by the EU's top court last year. Then came the first major fines under the new rule book. Apple fined €500 million, Meta €200 million for violation of the Digital Markets Act. But this is about more than just money. The real power of the fortress lies in its ability to force change. The most visible example is Apple. For years, the iPhone has been a walled garden, with the App Store as the only gate. The DMA is forcing Apple to do something it's always resisted: show alternative app stores on its devices in Europe. The company was hit with its €500 million fine, specifically because of its anti-steering rules, which illegally blocked app developers from telling users about cheaper offers outside the App Store. Meta's pay or consent model, which forced users to either agree to have their data harvested for ads or pay a subscription fee, was also challenged. The EU found this model didn't offer a real choice, fined Meta under the DMA for its practices between March and November of last year. Then there's the case of Space Karen's Twitter. Yes, it's still called Twitter. No, it's not, but I am. Recently, the platform was slapped with a €120 million fine under the DSA. The EU found that their blue checkmark system was deceptive, its advertising database not transparent, and it failed to give researchers proper access to its data. It was the first major sanction for these kinds of rule breaking under the DSA, and my goodness, didn't Space Karen have a whine about it. And it sends a crystal clear message: nobody's above the law. This is why Trump is attacking the EU. Not because it's making Europe weak, but because it's making it strong. Not all powerful. The EU has had to bend to Trump in some areas to cover for the aforementioned weakness on defence and security due to our complacency. But the UK is a case in point. Couple of things. First of all, remember a few years ago, where the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and this was very serious, and the EU called Mark Zuckerberg, because Facebook was very much involved in it, to come and answer questions. And he did. He trotted along. The UK Parliament said to Mark Zuckerberg, we've got questions for you as well. Come here, lad. And he went, no, thanks. I'll send one of my underlings. That's the power. The UK is a powerful country within Europe if you just look at countries individually. We couldn't get Zuckerberg to turn up. What we were going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Oh, nothing. Nice one. The EU said, Zuckerberg, here now. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full, sir. That is the difference. But also outside the EU, we are now struggling to have the same robust defences against social media abuse as the EU. We are exactly what Trump wants for the rest of Europe. A lone country, which, although one of the most powerful individual countries in Europe, nowhere near strong enough to withstand bullying from the USA. Do not look to us to bring these tech giants to heel in the UK. We can't. We've tried it before. We failed. We haven't the power. That we can't is not a weakness in the government we have now. Past governments have been unable to do it. It's weakness from leaving the EU's fortress and setting up a tent on our own. Trump recognises the awesome power of social media for warping people's perceptions and in effect controlling them. He is able to use his position to bend those US tech giants to his will, but he is unable to make Europe bend to the US tech giants' will. The barrier to his plans to harvest our continent is the EU. Trump doesn't think Europe is weak. He fears it's strong, and that is why he's behaving as he is. Trump likes weak. He is weak, and so he needs others to be even weaker to avoid feeling threatened. This is why his national security strategy talks about helping weak parties in Europe. National Rally, Reform UK, the AfD, and so on. He will begin by helping Orban's Fidesz party in next year's Hungarian elections, because he wants Hungary to stay weak. Orban isn't strong. He makes Hungary weak. Under his leadership, they have become a vassal to Russia. That is not strength. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel for more content. Click the bell notification icon so you know when new videos are coming out. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I'll see you later.